Letters on Yoga, Tome 1, The Supramental Evolution by Sri Aurobindo, Part 4. It is quite possible that there have been periods of harmony on different levels, not supramental, which were afterwards disturbed. But that could only be a stage or resting place in an arc of spiritual evolution out of the inconscious. What is meant here is the divine in its essential manifestation, which reveals itself to us as light and consciousness, power, love, and beauty. But in its actual cosmic manifestation, the Supreme, being the infinite and not bound by any limitation, can manifest in itself, in its consciousness of innumerable possibilities, something that seems to be the opposite of itself, something in which there can be darkness, inconscience, inertia, insensibility, disharmony, and disintegration. It is this that we see at the basis of the material world, and speak of nowadays as the inconscient ocean of the Rig Veda, in which the One was hidden and arose in the form of this universe, or, as it is sometimes called, the non-being, Asat. The ignorance which is the characteristic of our mind and life is the result of this origin in the inconscious. Moreover, in the evolution, out of inconscient existence, there rise up naturally powers and beings which are interested in the maintenance of all negations of the divine: error and unconsciousness, pain, suffering, obscurity, death, weakness, illness, disharmony, evil. Hence the perversion of the manifestation here, its inability to reveal the true essence of the divine. Yet, in this very base of this evolution, all that is divine is there involved and pressing to evolve. Light, consciousness, power, perfection, beauty, love. For in the inconscient itself, and behind the perversions of the ignorance, the divine consciousness lies concealed and works and must more and more appear, throwing off in the end its disguises. That is why it is said that the world is called to express the divine. Your statement about the supramental evolution is correct, except that it does not follow that humanity as a whole will become supramental. What is more likely to happen is that the supramental principle will be established in the evolution by the descent, just as the mental principle was established by the appearance of thinking mind and man in earthly life. There will be a race of supramental beings on the earth, just as now there is a race of mental beings. Man himself will find a greater possibility of rising to the planes intermediary between his mind and supermind, and making their powers effective in his life, which will mean a great change in humanity on earth. But it is not likely that the mental stage will disappear from the ascending ladder. And if so, the continued existence of a mental race will be necessary so as to form a stage between the vital and the supramental in the evolutionary movement of the spirit. Such a descent of higher beings, as you suggest, may be envisaged as a part of the process of the change. But the main part of the change will be the appearance of the supramental being and the organization of a supramental nature here. As a mental being has appeared and a mental nature organized itself during the last stage of the evolution. I prefer nowadays not to speak of the descent of the higher beings, because my experience is that it leads to a vain and often egoistic romanticism, which distracts the attention from the real work, that of the realization of the divine and the transformation of the nature. What we are doing, if and when we succeed, will be a beginning, not a completion. It is the foundation of a new consciousness on earth, a consciousness with infinite possibilities of manifestation. The eternal progression is in the manifestation, and beyond it there is no progression. If the redemption of the soul from the physical vesture be the object, then there is no need of supramentalization. Spiritual mukti and nirvana are sufficient. If the object is to rise to supraphysical planes, then also there is no need of supramentalization. One can enter into some heaven above by devotion to the Lord of that heaven. But that is no progression. The other worlds are typal worlds, each fixed in its own kind and type and law. Evolution takes place on the earth, and therefore the earth is the proper field for progression. The beings of the other worlds do not progress from one world to another. They remain fixed to their own type. The purely monastic Vedantist says, all is Brahman, life is a dream, an unreality. Only Brahman exists. One has nirvana or mukti, then one lives only till the body falls. After that, there is no such thing as life. They do not believe in transformation because mind, life, and body are an ignorance, an illusion. The only reality is the featureless, relationless self, or Brahman. Life is a thing of relations. In the pure self, all life and relations disappear. What would be the use or the possibility of transforming an illusion that can never be anything else, however transformed, than an illusion? There is no such thing for them as a nirvanic life. It is only some yogas that aim at a transformation of any kind, except that of ignorance into knowledge. The idea varies, sometimes a divine knowledge or power, or else a divine purity or an ethical perfection or a divine love. What has to be overcome is the opposition of the ignorance that does not want the transformation of the nature. If that can be overcome, then old spiritual ideas will not form an obstacle. It is not intended to supramentalize humanity at large, but to establish the principle of the supramental consciousness in the earth evolution. If that is done, all that is needed will be evolved by the supramental power itself. It is not therefore important that the mission should be widespread. What is important is that the thing should be done at all, in however small a number. That is the only difficulty. If the transformation of the body is complete, that means no subjection to death. It does not mean that one will be bound to keep the same body for all time. One creates a new body for oneself when one wants to change, but how it will be done cannot be said now. The present method is by physical birth. Some occultists suppose that a time will come when that will not be necessary. But the question must be left for the supramental evolution to decide.